The community center was decorated in soft yellow and gray, gender neutral, because my sister Emma wanted to keep it a surprise. Balloons clustered in every corner, and a three-tiered cake sat on the main table surrounded by perfectly wrapped gifts. About 40 people filled the room, mostly Emma's friends from her mommy groups and yoga classes, plus family members who'd driven in for the occasion. I sat in a folding chair near the back, holding a cup of punch I hadn't touched. I'd arrived exactly on time with my gift, a custom-made baby blanket from a local artisan, and had been trying to stay invisible ever since. It wasn't working. Paya. My mother's voice cut across the room. She was standing near the gift table, gesturing for me to come closer. Come here, sweetheart. We're taking family photos. I set down my punch and made my way through the crowd. Emma was seated in the designated mom-to-be throne, a white wicker chair draped in tulle, with her husband Derek standing behind her, his hand protectively on her shoulder. She was 7 months pregnant and glowing in the way everyone always said pregnant women glowed. My mother arranged us for the photo. Emma and Derek in the center, Mom and Dad flanking them, and me off to the side. Literally in the frame, barely in the picture. Perfect, the photographer said, snapping several shots. Now just Emma's immediate family, Mom instructed, and I started to step out of the frame. No, Maya, you too. You're still family even if you don't have your own yet. The emphasis on yet made it clear what she really meant, even though you never will. After the photos, the party moved into the games portion. Baby bingo. Guess the baby food flavor. Diaper raffle. I participated quietly, winning none of them, which seemed appropriate given the day's theme. Then came the advice cards. Everyone write down one piece of parenting advice for Emma, the hostess announced, passing around pretty cards with storks on them. Something from your own experience or something you've learned. I stared at my blank card for a long moment, then wrote, trust your instincts. You'll know what your baby needs better than anyone else. When we went around the room sharing our advice, most people talked about sleep schedules and feeding techniques. My Aunt Sandra shared something about always keeping extra wipes in the car. Emma's mother-in-law gave a long speech about the importance of routine. Then it was my turn. I read my card aloud, and before I could sit back down, my mother laughed. Not a small laugh. A full, loud laugh that made everyone turn to look. Oh, Maya, she said, still chuckling. That's sweet, but maybe those of us who actually have children should give the parenting advice. The room went uncomfortably quiet. Mom, Emma said softly, but my mother was already rolling. I mean, you can't give advice about something you've never experienced, can you? It's like... She looked around the room for support. It's like asking someone who's never driven a car to teach a driving course. A few people laughed nervously. Derek shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. It's fine, I said quietly, sitting back down. I was just trying to participate. Of course you were, my mother said, her tone dripping with pity. And it's wonderful that you came to support your sister even though this must be hard for you. I know how you feel about not having children. I didn't feel any particular way about not having children at the moment, but this wasn't the time to correct her. Dad cleared his throat. Patricia, maybe we should move on to the gifts. In a minute, Mom said, warming to her subject now. She'd had 2 glasses of champagne and was in that dangerous space between tipsy and drunk where filters disappeared. I think it's important to acknowledge different life choices. Maya has chosen her career over family, and that's valid. Not everyone is meant to be a mother. Mom, Emma said again, more firmly this time. What? I'm being supportive. I'm saying it's okay that she's 33 and has no prospects of children. Some women just aren't wired for it. They're too independent, too focused on themselves. You're too career-focused to ever be a mother, she announced to the entire room as if she were delivering profound wisdom. And that's fine. The world needs career women too. Dad nodded sagely. Some women aren't meant for children. It's not a criticism, Maya. It's just an observation. You've always been more interested in your work than in relationships or family planning. My Aunt Sandra joined in, emboldened by my parents' example. I've always said Maya is married to her job. Nothing wrong with that. But Emma, sweetheart, you're going to be such a wonderful mother. You've always been so nurturing. The implication was clear. Unlike your sister. Emma's best friend, Melissa, touched my arm sympathetically. It must be hard being at a baby shower when you don't have kids of your own. Are you doing okay? I'm fine, I said, my voice steady. Are you though? My mother pressed. Because I worry about you, sweetheart. You're always alone in that apartment working those long hours. What kind of life is that? A fulfilling one, I said quietly. Fulfilling, my mother repeated as if testing the word. Is it really fulfilling to go home to an empty apartment every night? To have no one depending on you? No one who needs you? I stayed quiet, counting to 10 in my head. This wasn't new. This was the same conversation we'd been having in various forms for the past 5 years. Ever since I'd hit 30 and was still unmarried and childless. You know what I think the problem is? Derek's mother, Carol, chimed in. She barely knew me but had apparently formed strong opinions. These career women, they wait too long. They think they have all the time in the world and then suddenly they're 40 and it's too late. Maya's 33, Emma said, trying to defend me. That's not too late. It's getting there, Carol said bluntly. And besides, it's not just about age. It's about priorities. You can't have everything. Career, relationship, children. Something has to give. Emma's managing, I pointed out. Emma quit her job to focus on family, my mother said proudly. She made the right choice. She chose what matters. The implication that I hadn't chosen what mattered hung in the air like smoke. You could still turn things around, Aunt Sandra offered. Maybe ease up on the work hours. Join a dating app. You're not bad looking when you make an effort. I'm sure there's someone out there who wouldn't mind that you're past your prime. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket but ignored it. The thing is, my mother continued, Maya's always been selfish. Not in a mean way but in a self-focused way. Everything's about her career, her projects, her goals. That's not what motherhood requires. Motherhood requires sacrifice. Selflessness. Putting someone else's needs before your own. Which Maya has never been good at, Dad added. Remember when she was supposed to babysit Emma and cancelled because of some work thing? I was 24 and had a presentation that determined whether I got promoted, I said quietly. Exactly, Dad said as if I'd proven his point. Career over family. Every time. My phone buzzed again. Then again. Someone's popular, Melissa joked. Probably work, my mother said with a sigh. It's always work with Maya. Emma was looking at me with a mixture of pity and discomfort. Mom, maybe we should open presents now. In a moment, Mom said. She was looking at me with that expression I knew too well. The one that said she was about to deliver what she thought was tough love. Maya, honey, I say this because I love you. You need to face reality. You're 33 years old. You have no partner. No children. No prospects of either. And while your career might keep you busy, it won't keep you warm at night. It won't love you back. Patricia, Dad said, but even he sounded like he agreed with her. Someone needs to say it, Mom insisted. I'm tired of tiptoeing around it. My daughter is going to end up alone because she's too stubborn and self-absorbed to make room in her life for anyone else. The room was silent now. Even the people who didn't know me well looked uncomfortable. My phone rang. The ringtone echoed through the quiet room, a classical piece I'd set for important calls. I pulled out my phone and looked at the screen. International Adoption Services of America. My heart rate picked up. This was it. The call I'd been waiting for. You should answer that, my mother said sarcastically. Wouldn't want to miss an important work call. It's not work, I said, and before I could second-guess myself, I put it on speaker. Hello. Ms. Anderson? The voice was crisp and professional. I recognized it immediately as Margaret Chin, the adoption coordinator I'd been working with for 14 months. I hope this is a good time. I have wonderful news. Your twins are ready for pickup from Ethiopia. The room went silent. Every single person froze. My mother's hand was halfway to her mouth. Emma's eyes were wide. Derek had actually dropped the piece of cake he'd been eating. Your twins, my mother whispered. Margaret continued, oblivious to the drama unfolding on my end. The paperwork was finalized this morning. Both babies, Amara and Yona's ages 9 months, are healthy and cleared for travel. Shall we prepare the nursery in your penthouse as we discussed? I know you wanted the full service package. My sister dropped the gift she'd been holding. It hit the floor with a loud thud. Yes, I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady. That would be perfect, Margaret. When can I fly out? Your flight is booked for Monday morning. First class to Addis Ababa, with a private security escort as you requested. The Ethiopian liaison will meet you at the airport. You'll stay 3 days for the embassy appointments, then return with the twins on Thursday. Monday, I repeated, feeling tears prick my eyes. After 14 months of paperwork, home studies, background checks, and waiting, my babies were finally coming home. I'll email you the complete itinerary within the hour, Margaret said warmly. And Maya? Congratulations. You're going to be a wonderful mother. Thank you, I whispered. One more thing. Shall I have the staff prepare both the Manhattan penthouse and the Connecticut estate? I know you wanted options for the first few weeks. I could feel 40 pairs of eyes boring into me. Let's start with Manhattan, I said. We'll see how everyone adjusts. Perfect. I'll coordinate with your property manager. See you Monday. She hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. My sister dropped her gift. The sound of it hitting the floor seemed to break the spell. You're adopting twins? Emma's voice was barely audible. I am, I confirmed, putting my phone away. From Ethiopia, my mother said faintly. You're adopting twin babies from Ethiopia. Yes. And you have a penthouse, Dad added, as if that was the detail his brain chose to focus on. With a nursery. And a Connecticut estate, Aunt Sandra breathed. Carol, Derek's mother, was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Did she say your flight was first class? And you have private security? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I'd been simultaneously dreading and anticipating. The moment when I stopped letting them believe their comfortable narrative about my sad, small, selfish life. I've been working with International Adoption Services for 14 months, I explained, my voice calm. The process has been intensive. Home studies, financial disclosures, background checks, multiple interviews. I was approved for adoption 6 months ago and have been waiting for a match ever since. But, my mother sputtered, but you never said anything. You never mentioned adopting. You never mentioned wanting children. I mentioned it, I said quietly. 3 years ago at Christmas. I said I was thinking about adoption. You laughed and said I could barely take care of myself, let alone a child. The memory hung between us. I could see my mother remembering it, her face flushing. So I stopped mentioning it, I continued. I started the process in secret. Just me and the adoption agency and my lawyer. Your lawyer, Derek repeated numbly. Adoption requires extensive legal documentation, I explained. Especially international adoption. I needed someone to help navigate the Ethiopian legal system and coordinate with U.S. immigration. And you have a penthouse, my mother said again, as if she couldn't get past that detail. With a nursery. You told her to prepare the nursery in your penthouse. Yes. But you live in a 1-bedroom apartment on the west side. No, I said gently. You assume I live in a 1-bedroom apartment on the west side. I actually own a penthouse in Tribeca. I've lived there for 7 years. That's impossible, Dad said flatly. Penthouses in Tribeca cost millions. They do, I agreed. Maya doesn't have millions, my mother said, but her voice was uncertain now. How do you know what I have? I asked. When's the last time you asked me about my finances? Or my work? Or my life? More silence. Emma found her voice first. What do you do, Maya? I mean, I know you work in tech, but... I'm the founder and CEO of Catalyst Solutions, I said. We develop AI-driven platforms for nonprofit organizations. We help charities maximize their impact through better data analytics and resource allocation. That's wonderful, Melissa said faintly. The company was valued at $2.1 billion in our last funding round, I added. We're projected to go public next year at around $3.4 billion. You could have heard a pin drop. Billion, my mother whispered. With AB. With AB, I confirmed. But you always said you worked for a small tech startup, Aunt Sandra protested. You said it was nothing special. I said I worked in tech, I corrected. You all assumed it was nothing special. I just didn't correct you. Carol was frantically Googling on her phone. Catalyst Solutions. Yo Maya Anderson. Forbes 30 under 30. Wall Street Journal profile. Oh my God. This is you. This is actually you. She turned her phone around to show a professional photo of me from a conference last year. I was wearing a navy suit and standing next to the former head of the UN Development Program. Your worth, Carol swallowed hard. It says here your personal net worth is estimated at $1.8 billion. Estimates are usually inflated, I said mildly. But I'm comfortable. Comfortable, my father repeated. He looked like he might pass out. And you're adopting, Emma said, tears in her eyes. You're going to be a mom. I am, I said, and I couldn't keep the smile off my face. To 9-month-old twins. A boy and a girl. Jonas and Amara. They've been in foster care in Addis Ababa while the paperwork processed. I've been video calling them every week. They're perfect. Can I see? Emma asked softly. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery. The most recent pictures showed 2 beautiful babies with huge dark eyes and infectious smiles. Jonas was wearing a blue onesie decorated with elephants. Amara had a tiny bow clipped to her sparse curls. Emma started crying. Maya, they're beautiful. They really are, I said, my voice thick with emotion. My mother was still processing. A penthouse in Tribeca. Your own company. Billions of dollars. Adopting twins from Ethiopia. And you never said anything? What would I have said? I asked. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject or made a joke about me being a workaholic. Every time I mentioned wanting children, you told me I was too selfish. So I stopped trying to share my life with you. I just let you believe what you wanted to believe. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it? I kept my voice gentle. Mom, when's the last time you asked me a question about my life that wasn't laced with criticism or pity? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I'll wait, I said. The silence stretched out. This is my fault, Emma said suddenly. She was crying harder now. I never asked either. I was so wrapped up in my own stuff. The wedding, the house, the baby. I never even asked what you were doing. I just assumed you were, I don't know, struggling. Why would you assume that? I asked. Because that's what Mom always said. That you were working so hard just to make ends meet. That you were too proud to ask for help. I looked at my mother. Is that what you told her? My mother had the grace to look ashamed. I thought it was true. You never spent money on anything. You always wore simple clothes, drove an old car, lived modestly. I still do most of those things, I said. Having money doesn't mean I need to flash it around. I dress simply because I don't care about fashion. I drive a 10-year-old Subaru because it's reliable and functional. I live modestly because I don't need much space, though I will need more now with the twins. So the Connecticut estate, Dad said slowly, that's real too? 40 acres in Litchfield County, I confirmed. I bought it 3 years ago. It has a main house, a guest house, and a renovated barn. I thought it would be a good place for the twins to grow up. Lots of space to play, good schools nearby, close enough to the city for when I need to be in the office. You have a staff, Aunt Sandra said, still trying to piece it together. The woman on the phone mentioned coordinating with your property manager. I have a small staff, yes. A property manager who handles both residences. A personal assistant. A driver for when I'm too tired to drive myself. A housekeeper for the Connecticut house. And now I'll be hiring 2 full-time nannies, 1 for each twin, plus a night nurse for the first few months. 2 nannies, Carol breathed. That's very exclusive. I want to be present for my children, I said firmly. But I also run a company. The nannies will ensure the twins are never without care, even when I'm in meetings or traveling for work. You're really doing this, Emma said wonderingly. You're really going to be a mom. I really am. She got up from her throne chair, awkwardly given her 7-month baby bump, and came over to hug me. I'm sorry, she whispered in my ear. For all of it. For not paying attention. For letting Mom and Dad treat you like that. For assuming the worst. I hugged her back tightly. I forgave you before you even apologized. Will you tell me about them? She asked, pulling back to look at me. Your twins. How they came to be available for adoption. So I told her. About the orphanage in Addis Ababa. About how the twins had been surrendered at 2 months old by a birth mother who wanted them to have opportunities she couldn't provide. About the foster family who'd cared for them while the legal process unfolded. About my first video call with them, when Jonas grabbed the camera and Amara just stared with those huge solemn eyes. As I talked, more people gathered around. Even the people who'd been making jokes about my sad, childless life were listening now, asking questions, genuinely interested. My mother stood apart from the group, looking lost. After a few minutes, I excused myself and walked over to her. "Mom," I said quietly. "I don't understand," she said, and she actually sounded confused rather than angry. "Why would you hide all this from us?" "I didn't hide it," I said gently. "I just stopped sharing it when it became clear you didn't want to hear it. Every achievement I mentioned became a lecture about work-life balance. Every success became evidence that I was neglecting what really mattered. So I learned to keep those parts of my life separate." "I thought I was helping," she said softly. "I thought if I pushed hard enough, you'd realize you were on the wrong path." "I'm not on the wrong path," I said. "I'm on my path. It doesn't look like your path or Emma's path, and that's okay. But Mom, you can't keep trying to force me into a life I don't want just because you don't understand the one I've chosen." "But you're adopting," she said, still trying to reconcile this information. "You do want children." "I've always wanted children," I said. "I just didn't want to wait for a husband to have them. And I didn't want to give up my career to raise them. So I found a way to have both, adopting as a single mother with enough resources to provide excellent care." "And the penthouse," she said. "The Connecticut estate. The billions of dollars." "Yes. Because not only are you adopting 2 babies," she said slowly, the full reality sinking in, "you own the entire apartment building they're renting." I blinked. "What?" "Emma and Derek," she said. "Their apartment building. The one on the Upper West Side. That building." "Right. I'd forgotten about that. You own their building?" Emma called from across the room. Apparently our conversation wasn't as private as I thought. "I own 17 apartment buildings in Manhattan," I said carefully. "It's possible theirs is one of them." "What's the address?" "Derek told me." I pulled up my property management app and checked. "Oh," I said. "Yes. That's one of mine. I bought it 4 years ago." "We pay rent to you?" Derek's voice was strangled. "Technically you pay rent to Catalyst Property Management, which is a subsidiary of my holding company. But ultimately yes." "How much of Manhattan do you own?" Dad asked faintly. 17 residential buildings, 8 commercial properties, and 2 mixed-use developments," I said. "The real estate portfolio is worth about $1.2 billion. It's part of my diversification strategy. Tech can be volatile, but real estate in Manhattan is consistently strong." "Jesus Christ," Derek muttered. "And we've been complaining about the rent to you," Emma said, starting to laugh. It was the slightly hysterical laughter of someone whose world has just been turned upside down. "Derek literally sent a strongly worded email last month about the cost increase." "I saw that," I admitted. "My property manager handles day-to-day operations, but I review major correspondence. For what it's worth, the increase was only to cover rising property taxes. We're still below market rate for that neighborhood." "Below market rate," Emma repeated. "Of course you are." My mother sank into a nearby chair. "I called you selfish. Today. To your face. I said you were too self-absorbed to be a mother." "You did," I agreed. "But you're adopting twins from Ethiopia. You're bringing 2 orphan children into your life. You're giving them everything. A home, resources, education, love. That's literally the opposite of selfish." "I know," I said gently. "And I've been terrible to you. For years. Because I thought I knew better. I thought I understood your life when I didn't understand anything at all." He was crying now. Real tears, not the performative kind she did sometimes for attention. I knelt beside her chair. "Mom, I'm not angry. I'm really not. But things do need to change between us." "What do you need?" she asked, looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Tell me what you need from me." "I need you to stop assuming you know what's best for my life," I said. "I need you to ask questions instead of making judgments. I need you to celebrate my successes instead of treating them like character flaws. And I need you to respect the choices I make, even when they're different from the choices you would make." "I can do that," she said immediately. "I will do that. And Mom." I squeezed her hand. "I need you to be a grandmother to Jonas and Amara. Not the way you think a grandmother should be, but the way they need you to be. Can you do that?" "Yes," she whispered. "God, yes. I want to be part of their lives. Part of your life." "Then we'll make it work," I said. But on my terms this time. Boundaries. Respect. No more lectures about my life choices. No more lectures, she agreed. I promise. I stood up and turned to face the room. Everyone was watching. The shower guests, the family members, even the photographer who'd stopped pretending to be discreet and was openly staring. I know this is a lot to process, I said. And I know it changes the dynamic of today. This is your shower. Your day. I don't want to take that away from you. But Emma was smiling. A real smile, not forced or uncomfortable. Are you kidding? This is the best baby shower ever. My boring family just got interesting. Derek laughed. Boring might be generous. Also, Emma continued, you're about to become a mom. That means our kids will be close in age. They can grow up together. Be best friends. Have play dates. I'd like that, I said softly. So would I. She came over and hugged me again. I'm sorry I wasn't a better sister. I'm going to do better. I promise. Me too, I said. The party slowly resumed, but with a completely different energy. People actually wanted to talk to me now. Not out of pity or obligation but genuine interest. They asked about the twins, about the adoption process, about my company. Melissa pulled me aside at one point. Can I be honest? I've always been sort of intimidated by you. You seemed so put together and independent. I thought you looked down on the rest of us. Never, I said. I just learned not to share the parts of my life that made people uncomfortable. Well, she said, start sharing. Because I want to hear everything. And also, my nonprofit could really use better data analytics. Can I send you some information about what we do? I smiled. Absolutely. That's literally what my company does. By the time the shower wound down, I'd made plans to have lunch with Emma next week, scheduled a video call with my parents to tell them more about the twins, and agreed to speak at Derek's law firm about tech law considerations. As I was leaving, my mother caught my arm. Monday, she said. When you fly to Ethiopia. Can we come with you? Your father and I? We'd like to be there when you meet them. When you become a mother. I hesitated. Part of me wanted this moment to be just mine, private and perfect. But another part of me, the part that was still a daughter despite everything, wanted to share it with my family. Yes, I said finally. But you have to promise to follow my lead. This is about Jonas and Amara, not about you. Of course, she said. Whatever you need. I drove home to my penthouse. My actual home, not the modest apartment my family had imagined. The space was beautiful in that understated, expensive way. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. Custom millwork. A chef's kitchen I barely used. And down the hall, 2 nurseries that had been carefully designed and were now waiting for their occupants. I walked into the first nursery, Amara's room. Soft pink walls, not because of gender stereotypes, but because pink was the color of the Ethiopian sunset and I wanted her to remember where she came from. A mobile of African animals hung over the crib. Books in both English and Amharic lined the shelves. Then Jonas's room. Pale blue walls. Another mobile, this one with stars. A rocking chair where I planned to spend countless hours feeding him bottles and singing songs I barely remembered from my own childhood. I stood between the 2 rooms and let myself cry. Happy tears this time. Relief that the secret was finally out. Joy that in 4 days, these rooms would have babies in them. Anticipation of the life I was about to begin. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Just told Derek about you owning our building. He's mortified about that email. I'm making him write you an apology. I texted back. Not necessary. But I'll take babysitting credits when you need a break. Her response came immediately. Deal. Also, I want my kids to know their aunt. The real you, not the version we invented. Love you. Love you too, I typed back. Another text, this one from my mother. I've been looking at flights to Ethiopia. Your father is checking his calendar. We're serious about coming with you. And Maya? Thank you for letting us have another chance. I sat down in the rocking chair in Jonas's room and looked out at the city lights. 5 years ago, when my family had laughed at me for mentioning adoption, I'd felt so alone. I genuinely believed that I would go through this entire process by myself, that I'd raise my children without the support of the family I was born into. But maybe people could change. Maybe relationships could heal. Maybe it wasn't too late to build the family I'd always wanted. Not just the twins I was about to bring home, but the complicated, messy, imperfect family I already had. My phone rang again. Margaret from the adoption agency. Hi Maya. I wanted to go over the itinerary one more time before Monday. Do you have a few minutes? I have all the time you need, I said, settling deeper into the rocking chair. As Margaret walked me through the schedule, embassy appointments, medical checks, final legal documents, I looked around the nursery and felt something settle in my chest. This was really happening. After 14 months of waiting, of hoping, of preparing in secret, I was about to become a mother. Not despite my success. Not instead of my career. But alongside it, integrated into it, part of the whole complicated life I'd built. One last thing, Margaret said. The foster family wants to meet you when you arrive. They've grown very attached to the twins and want to make sure they're going to a good home. Are you comfortable with that? Absolutely, I said. I want them to see that Jonas and Amara will be loved. That they made the right choice keeping them safe until I could get there. You're going to be an incredible mother, Margaret said warmly. I can already tell. After we hung up, I stayed in the nursery for a while longer, just sitting in the silence and the dark. 4 days. In 4 days, my entire life would change. But really, it had already changed. Today, in that community center decorated with yellow and gray balloons, I'd stopped hiding. I'd stopped letting my family define me by their assumptions. I'd stopped making myself small to make them comfortable. And it felt good. Curious. Vulnerable, definitely. But good. I pulled up the photo of Jonas and Amara on my phone. My favorite one, where they're both looking at the camera with matching expressions of curiosity. Soon I'd be able to hold them. Feed them. Rock them to sleep in these carefully prepared nurseries. Watch them grow up surrounded by love and opportunity and all the things I could provide. My phone buzzed one more time. Emma again. Baby names. We need to coordinate. I don't want our kids to have rhyming names or anything weird like that. I laughed out loud in the empty nursery. Then I texted back. Their names are Jonas and Amara. What are you thinking for yours? We're deciding between Oliver and Henry for a boy, Sophia or Grace for a girl. All beautiful, I typed. And none rhyme with Jonas or Amara, so we're good. Perfect. See you next week for lunch. Bring photos of the twins. A lot of photos. I smiled and set my phone aside. Then I stood up, walked to the window and looked out at the city that had been my home for 15 years. The city where I'd built my company, made my fortune, created my life. And now the city where I'd raise my children. Different from my mother's life. Different from Emma's life. But mine. Fully, completely, unapologetically mine. And in 4 days it would all begin.